Hello, I'm Connie Rotella, and welcome to our Triple Threat podcast. I'm super excited to begin this journey with all of you. Are you ready to put your best foot forward and show up with confidence? This tool is here to help you evolve into the artist you are meant to be. Just always remember to believe, become, and be ready. Add a new skill set or refine what you already know. So here we go. I'm super excited to have Rick Tjia, our guest today on Industry Talk. So Rick is a choreographer, dancer, coach, and an artistic director. Actually, it's a casting director. Rick, thank you so much for getting on this little interview with me just to help us understand better this whole dance world, this whole casting world, the performance world, the industry world. Now, you've been doing this for a long time, right?
I've been in dance almost all my life. I've been casting. It's probably going on 17 and a half years now.
How did you get that role? Did you go looking for to be a casting director?
I actually didn't specifically. At some point I retired from dance, and then I had actually started like an online production company, which was originally a music label, and then kind of became a production company. It was nonprofit, and then I actually was thinking of partnering up with some other artistic organization. And the only one that really made any money was Cirque du Soleil. So I actually went through a temp agency and ended up in tour logistics, doing inventory, which is probably the most boring job in the world. And then from there, a casting job came up and I applied for that. And after a couple of times, I got that. And that's how I ended up in casting.
Did you start off here in Montreal? Where do you come from?
I come from the States.
Okay.
So I grew up in Florida mainly, even though I wasn't born in Florida, but my youth was pretty much in Florida up until 21, I guess, is when I moved. I lived in Boston for a year and then danced with Ballet Austin for 2 years, went to Los Angeles, and I did film and TV, freelance, as well as doing, the regular dance gigs around the country. And then that's when I auditioned for La 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 Human Steps. And that's how I ended up in Montreal. I worked and toured with them for 8 years, I guess. And after that, I retired.
And you decided to stay here in Montreal? Is this your home base now?
Yeah. And now I think either this year or next year, I will have officially spent more time in Canada than in the United States. I think I'm nearing the halfway point. So.
And if I read your biography, I think yesterday on your website, and it said you started out as a tap dancer.
Yeah.
I'm just a tap fan. I love I've tapped all my life too, and my son taps, and it's so crazy. So you started as a tap dancer, and then you moved up to technique and ballet and contemporary.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a tap was what I wanted to do, and then at some point my teacher said, well, your tap is really great, but you need to learn how to move the body, everything. So you should take a jazz as well. So then I went into this tap jazz class, and I hated jazz and I just wanted to do the tap. But then at some point I was like, okay, listen, I'm here, so I'm just going to try my best at jazz, and realized that I liked it. And so as I started doing tap and jazz, at some point teacher said, well, for your jazz technique, you probably want to take ballet. And, a young guy in the United States, like, ballet, what? And then I took ballet. They said, at least they put me in a men's class. They said, we have a men's class on Saturday. And it was just the hardest thing I'd ever done. So that's kind of the way I am. It's hard, so I'm going to master it. So.
Oh, so you like that. So when it gets hard and challenging, you want to master something.
I tend to, if it's too easy, it's not interesting to me. So that's how I ended up in ballet. And so I ended up doing ballet, tap, and jazz. And then, of course, from there, just all downhill from there to contemporary, to hip hop, and, street jazz, the whole bit.
I would love to know, what style is your favorite?
I don't really have a favorite because, it's just been bounced back and forth. I like the change. I tend to get bored with routine. So I love the change, and I will always love ballet. At the same time, I love to get busy with it.
What about tap though? You didn't forget about tap. Are you still tapping?
I'm not. No, I think when I started off on the ballet contemporary career, contemporary in film and TV, um, I stopped doing tap. Although I did have auditions in LA for tap, and I did get hired. I stopped. I was doing too many things. At some
No, I
point, there
get
was
it.
just no time.
I think of dancers training today, especially you work worldwide. What do you feel like a dancer needs to know in today's age?
The new popularity of dance that came with "So You Think You Can Dance" and now with social media, it's kind of a double-edged sword in the sense that it has increased dance popularity like incredibly. The whole world is like hungering for dance, which is a good thing. But what it has also done is it's made people satisfied with substandard technique, because everyone's looking for that quick 60-second, as long as I do something that looks good in 60 seconds, then, and most people don't see this technique flaws. You end up with a lot of people learning dance improperly, and then they become teachers very young. Nowadays, people at 18 are saying, oh yes, I'm a dance teacher. And so the same flaws get passed on, and that's all great when you're doing 60 seconds. But when you get that, someone actually ends up getting you a job like on Broadway or at Cirque, where you have to do shows day in, day out, you get injured quite easily. And the other thing is like, there's a lot of cheating. So, just giving you an example, everyone's like trying to do pirouettes, but everyone now is just rolling on their heels. They just go on their heels when they fall off, and they just keep turning, thinking that, oh, I'm succeeding, but you're not. That's not what it is, really. So yeah, so there are a lot of those flaws, a lot of turning in and people landing on turned in feet, which is really bad for the ankles. As far as contemporary jazz, I think the technique generally has downgraded. In ballet, it has stayed the same. Ballet is probably the exception. Like the ballet schools who were on top back then are still on top today, and their quality is still there. But the rest is, unfortunately, has kind of started to slide.
It's sad when we hear that, because in my studio, I own a triple threat studio, and I make sure that the education of the teachers, that's why all my teachers are still teaching, because they're all certified, and we can call them finally masters, because at 18 you cannot be a master. So when we see master workshops at a young age, I get confused on the education that they're giving out there. But I make sure that my teachers are people that have been doing and mastering their technique for a long time in order to give back. And I think I'm one of the only schools that is like a triple threat here in Montreal, where I value so much the education, the training, the foundation is priority. And I feel like anybody that stopped into my school have a career. It's a longevity career because they've touched so many different things, but we also educated them on so many different things. And I'm happy you said that. In the ballet schools, definitely ballet is for life, right? A dancer could do ballet at any age. I still see my 65-year-old ballet teacher, and she is in great shape. They inspire not only me as the owner, but my students and the parents, just to show them. It's so funny because I go with the older teachers, and a lot of studios go with the younger teachers, like you explained. And I'm like, I'm going to stick with my older teachers, the international team. I'm going to stick with them because they know how to really teach.
Yeah, I think it's studios that there's a and we understand why they do it, but they go with the young popular teachers because they need to fill their classes, because that's the way they survive. So on the one hand, you can't blame them for doing that, but on the other hand, it is not necessarily doing the industry a service, the discipline of service.
Because
And
when they show up to you, you're going to see the difference right away.
I'm going to see it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to see it right away. I mean, a lot of times people don't understand that within the first 10 seconds, a lot of times I can tell if someone's going to be, this person is going to hurt themselves in 2 months. And of course, you obviously you can't tell that for sure, but you know that the risk is there. And that's one of the reasons why my company, Choreography Online, is working together with another organization in the UK called International Performing Arts and Theatre, or IPATH for short. And in redoing, I mean, they have a whole new set of dance syllabi for the 21st century. And one of the ones that So they're finishing up a ballet syllabus, tap syllabus, contemporary syllabus, with the idea that it's going to be constantly looked at and constantly to have it evolve with evolutions in knowledge and technique, as opposed to some of the old ones that just don't change. You know, it stays the same regardless. One of the things that we've come out with recently is choreography syllabus as well, which I'm currently teaching online as well. But the same thing, although that's less a technique in physical technique in dance, there's still a lot of knowledge and techniques and tools that people don't know about. So
you know what, I
think,
find that fascinating. I love it. Choreography technique.
Yeah, I mean, I've been observing and analyzing for my entire career, and so yeah, it took me about a year to put it together. And once again, it's an evolution. I mean, I think to create a syllabus and then say, well, that's it, it's done. Yeah, but we learn things. We learn science. We learn anatomy, and learn new things about the body, and new ways of teaching. And so the syllabus has to be constantly evolving. And so since I've written it, it's already started to evolve, you know, because now we have things like online choreography, you know, for the online audience, which is completely different from doing it on stage. So there's that to consider, and that's also going to be developing over the next few years. So the syllabus is going to be constantly trying to move with the times.
So basically, a dancer, you're never, it's just a never ending journey. You're always in training, you're always upping your game, and you always have to keep going at it and learning the new techniques and the new
it should be it should be,
especially if this is something you want to do and love to do, right? It never stops.
Exactly. And they do it in other professions, you know, science and mathematics is constantly evolving with the new knowledge and changing. And for some reason in dance, we're still teaching things the way they were like 600 years ago, 400 years ago, you know, and it just doesn't make sense. You got to revisit it because, and especially today where information, passes so quickly, you know, we learn new things so quickly that, you know, you got to be able to change it.
What would you tell parents of young children that say, Mom or Dad, I want to become a dancer? Because I speak to a lot of parents. So I know the overnight fame and making sure that they connect with the ones that are in right now, the in dancers, let's say. Like, what would you tell these parents? Because I'm afraid that they don't have enough education because they're going for who's going to hire my kid instead of going for how can my kid last in this industry? What would you tell them?
Is you got to make sure that your kid wants to be a dancer for the right reasons. Because if they're doing it because they want instant internet fame, first of all, there are very few people who get up to that level of fame. Number two, you know, having 1 million followers does not work as well as it did even 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And we're seeing that anyone who's in social advertising knows this now, that the whole influencer thing, whereas it had a big impact like maybe 3-4 years ago, it no longer has the same impact. And so I'll give you an example. So Choreography Online has a partnership with World of Dance, and we all know how big they are, you know, 1.6 million followers or more, right? And they've done posts for us, you know, stories, you know, to all their entire base. And for one of our events, it brought like 68 visits to our site. Out of millions of people, only 68. Whereas maybe 3 years ago, that would have brought a huge amount of, you know. So it's you know, people will react. And so today we're so bombarded with content that people will follow somebody for whatever reason, and they'll do a lot of liking, but they won't really take much action because there's just too much going on. We're bombarded with emails. We're bombarded with, you know, Instagram stories and Facebook stories. So to try to get someone to actually take action off of a post is much, much harder today than it was 2-3 years ago.
So you don't really believe in that whole, like, put all your attention to social media, make sure you're out there, make sure you got all these followers in order for you to be seen?
Well, I do think it's important to be out there, but I think that the number of followers you have does not, it's not as important as it was before. It's not going to necessarily give you a career. like it has over the last few years, that trend is kind of trending down. The problem is that it's going to take a while for people to realize that. So there's still some companies that are saying, oh, this person has like 6 million followers, I'm going to give them $10,000 or $20,000 to do a post. After a little while, they're going to notice it's not doing anything, so it's not doing anything for us. So, to go back to your original question. So this is the thing that the parents, I think, need to be wary of, is to make sure that their child understands that that's not a career choice. That's basically the lottery, and that the actual profession is much, much more difficult than just posting, 60-second clip and then becoming famous and making a lot of money. That's not.
They also get very confused because they only see what social media has. And I always call a lot of people underground, because the ones that are working and actually in auditions and could hire your child, they're not spending their days on social media posting their stuff. So they have to maybe do the research. I always believe if you do the right research, you'll find the ones that are going to be speaking the truth of where your child wants to go, the longevity career that your child wants, and making sure you find the right ballet teachers or the ballet school or the right teachers that can teach you all these disciplines. I think the foundation is the key, and it always is, with the proper research, because it's so confusing out there.
Yeah, the challenge with that is that the parents, unless they are dancers themselves, may not know necessarily what's good training and what's not. For me, I mean, I've been a dancer all my life, so if my kids want to train, it's easy for me to spot. I can tell them where to go, But I mean, just imagine a parent who doesn't know anything about dance. How are they going to choose? They just have to trust. But the thing about dance is that there's no international standard like there is for a lot of, like, if I give you an example, like if you have a university degree in engineering, even if you went to a so-so university, everybody knows that you have a minimal amount of knowledge of engineering, right? Because of that diploma. In dance, it's not the same. You can have a diploma from any school. It doesn't mean anything. There's no standard. And I actually wrote an article about dance technique where, I asked, out of all the mathematicians who have degrees, who have graduated, how many know how to multiply? And the answer is all of them, every single one of them, because without it, you don't graduate. And yet we have how many millions of dancers who have graduated, have diplomas, who can't do a triple pirouette? That we accept that. Triple pirouette is basic. It's basic. And if you can't do it, you're graduated, you've been through 7-8 years of dance school and you can't do a triple pirouette, there's something wrong. And yet that is the norm that we accept as a dance society.
Also about the technique, you can tell when a triple pirouette is executed right.
Yes. And
There's
they should, after 7 years of training, you should know that.
Yeah. I love it, Rick. Thank you for your honesty. You know what? It's so important to speak to the dancers and make them aware of their training. So when they're in class, there's a reason why you have to do all these classes in order to get better and be consistent. That's another thing. Oh yeah, I danced last year. Last year? And how are you going to keep up with it? You do it for a year and then you can take a break. Your body, you can take a break. You constantly have to work at it.
Well, you can take a break, but you have to understand that when you come back, it's going to take some time to get you back up to speed. I mean, you're not going to just, I did it last year, so I can take a job tomorrow. No, you're going to break.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just, so it's just like anything. I mean, there's, if you've trained since a young age and you've trained well, then yes, if you take a break, eventually, you come back, it'll come back, but it's not going to come back in a week. It's going to take a little time for you to get it back, and then you're good to go, but.
So you see dancers all over the world, because that's what you do. You tour, you cast, you coach, you choreograph, you direct. What is the difference from the Montreal dancers? Do you see enough Montreal dancers or Canadian dancers? Like, what do you see the difference when you go to all these different places where you audition dancers?
I'd say Montreal, when it comes to, it depends on what style of dance you're talking about. it's not the same as far as level of training. When you talk about, ballet and contemporary, I have to say, Montreal and Quebec doesn't have a lot of strong training.
Mhm.
It's better than it was, I have to
Mhm.
say, but globally, I don't see a lot of Montreal dancers working overseas. Some of them, they have some talented ones, and a lot of those ones that you do see, you will, and I'll probably get slammed for saying this, but a lot of the good dancers from Montreal and Quebec that do manage to get good technique, and you'll notice a lot of them actually trained outside. They move, they will have maybe started in Montreal and then moved to another, like outside
Mhm.
of the province or the country or whatever, and get their training and then come back. And this is something that I've been wanting to change, or at least try to change with one of the future ideas we have is to bring some of the IPATH syllabi here to Quebec. Because the thing about Quebec is that you have a lot of creative minds, but on a technical level, it's your creativity is limited when your dancers are limited technically. So it's kind of a, there's so much potential, but I just think that
So
we're not there yet.
that's
No,
exactly
we're
what I've
not
been
there yet.
telling to directors and producers when I'm sitting with them on the table. I feel like back in my days, we used to be hundreds with our number and all know how to dance the same style. Now I feel like if I would have to choreograph back like I used to do it back then, I feel like, oh my God, how do I blend all these styles in one choreography? Because it feels like not everybody's getting the same training. You would be in Toronto, they all train the same. So you can get all these dancers in the same room. But in Montreal, I feel like, oh no, we've lost that. We have so much creativity, which is beautiful. I love that originality. It's like they're storytellers without taking acting, which is great because I'm like, wow, their vision is out there. They're exploring so many different things. But put them all in one show like we used to do, like, any production shows. I don't know how it would look. Would everybody have straight legs, pointed toes, turned out? I don't even know how that would look
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah. It's. I mean, there is definitely a very eclectic side to the Montreal community, but I think one of the things that, and I teach this a lot, and I say it a lot on podcasts, and I've written it, is that um, there are for any kind of dance or any kind of movement based discipline, there are two main parts to technique, whatever technique that is. There's one part of the technique that's universal to all dance styles and to all movement based disciplines. And there's one that's specific to each dance style and each discipline.
Mhm.
And the first one that's universal is the control of your center of gravity as you move.
Mhm.
That control is universal, and that I can see even if I don't know the dance style.
Mhm.
And that's the base, and that's what holds it all together. That's how you can get, you know 20 people in the room from 20 different dance styles and get them all moving together, if they all master that.
Mhm.
And then of course the rest is, the other side of technique is based on the style, the ballet positions, the ballet lines versus the hip hop positions, the hip hop precision.
Mhm.
If we move to something like hip hop or street, I don't think a lot of the community understands that there is technique involved
Oh,
in
there's
that
so much.
too. They always talk about creativity, and I understand that's extremely important. It doesn't exist without the creativity, but without technique, that's where a lot of these people end up getting injured. Technique.
Right. Just like any styles, you need to train at it and you need to practice. And these are hours of rehearsals, like hours of being in a studio. And
Yeah,
and
but you
really,
need a good coach too.
I hope that you're bringing in more of that. And I'm going to be sharing it on my page and here on this podcast because we need to hear more of what you have to say because you're definitely someone that could educate all of us, even on a deeper level, even the new dancers. Because I'm always thinking of the next generation because those are the ones coming up. And we need to tell them right now, we need to educate them right now.
There's my personal website. There is my company's website, and then we have an international online dance competition that we run as well. And there's that website, and then there's the International Performing Arts and Theatre website in the UK. The important thing that people need to understand is that in order to evolve and to move forward, you have to, if you need to, you know that something needs to change. First of all, you have to break the old habits, and you have to be ready to be criticized. Just like I said, it's kind of taboo to say, well, there's a problem with training in Quebec, but at the same time, it's not going to get better until someone says it, until someone says, and it's going to bruise a lot of egos. But it's, and I just feel like that's in my entire life, that's how I've moved forward, is realizing when things are not working, and to when people come up to your face and say, this is not good, this is not working. And yes, it could hurt right away. But then when you stand back and think about it, you go, okay, well, I just want to be better. So how do I change that? And it takes, just think about the great Stanislavski, the great, he's very well known for his acting methods. This is a man who taught for years. His method became famous to school, and then at some point announced publicly, my method is not working. It doesn't work. I was wrong. You know what kind of courage it takes to say that after being famous for it?
Wow.
He noticed at some point that the actors he was producing were not any better than before.
Right. And
he had the courage to go public and say, I'm not teaching this anymore. My method does not work. And that's crazy, but that's how you move forward. Sometimes you got to look at the way you're doing things and say, and step back and say, if it's not working, something's got to change.
I'm so happy to hear all this. Rick, thank you so much for touching upon all. I like people that tell me that I'm not good. Like, Connie, you have to keep working. Connie, you need to do this, right? I'm someone that since a young age, I need to be trained in that way, because or else I don't feel like I'm learning. Compared to nowadays, because I have my ballet teachers are all Italians from Italy, where they're hardcore. So how many times do you think I got parents coming in the office because their child cried after class? But it's all love. I keep telling them it's all love. They're trying to teach you the right way. They want to teach you the right way. Can we allow these teachers to teach them right? And it's not, don't get offended if she told you that she repeated it 10 times, the same thing, and you're not getting it week after week. Practice it at home. I don't know why we have to be so careful on how we have to train nowadays, not to hurt anybody. And literally, I have Brazil teachers, Finland, Italy, and of course, they bring all their story to my studio, right? But for me, I had to constantly educate the parent going, it's ballet. We've got to teach them right. And when parents go, well, my friend in another studio are doing points at 10 years old. And I'm looking at them going, this is like 16 years in the business of studios. And I'm like, wow, who would put a child, if you're a parent, who would put a child on points and get hurt at such an early age? And I know this is like a whole other topic, but in my eyes, it's like, how is this normal to hear a parent say something like that? When are we going on points?
Parent doesn't understand how dangerous that can be. I mean, doing the wrong thing on point. I mean, these are career enders. You go over wrong on point, you could be injured for the rest of your life. That could be the end of your career right there. And the young bones are so soft. If they go on too early, it could just really destroy, girl's foot and ankle. When I was a teen, I used to work at a Capezio dance store, and I used to, have to sell these shoes. And I had a lot of parents asking if they could get them bigger so their daughter could grow into them because they're so expensive. And it was like, you can't do that with point shoes. It's not the same as regular shoes. It just can't. And yes, they're expensive. They're ridiculously expensive. But unfortunately, that's the way.
Exactly.
That's the way it works.
What frustrates me in this whole truth side is that I have to explain myself why I'm not putting a young child on point, but the other owners of other studios that are doing it don't have to explain anything because they're making them happy. But here I am having to justify, not me, my ballet teachers too, why it's not right to do. Actually, the future of dance, I don't know how it's going to look like. I don't even know how the future of dance studios are going to look like anymore. Because I actually got asked, someone came in to register, I want to do a TikTok class. And I'm like, a what? I didn't even know a TikTok class
That doesn't
exists.
mean anything.
I don't like, what style is TikTok? What are you talking about? So here I am going, I don't know how long I'm going to last in this dance studio life. If the media is going to take over the whole education part of it, I have no room. Like, I'll just keep doing what I do and love what I do, but I can educate the next generation of social media dancers.
As far as the professional dance, especially live dance, that they're not going to start hiring, people from TikTok class, simply because those people are it's going to be too limited. Yeah. First of all, and second of all, if they're just learning how to do 60-second fun things on video, how are they going to get through 10 shows a week? At Cirque, when you become a permanent Cirque artist, you're talking over 400 shows per year.
Yeah.
Over 400 2-hour shows per year. Mm-hmm. A TikTok artist is not going to last. Mm-hmm. They're not going to make it.
Yeah, a great example right there, Rick. Because in order to do those 8 shows a week on Broadway, in order to do those 400 shows a year, whatever you have to do, the right foundation is going to keep you healthy, alive, and being able to pursue this as a career for a long time. It actually brings me to these competitions. I know you have a competition website, but what do you feel when a lot of people do competitions? Like that market, how do you feel about that?
Yeah,
market?
See, it really depends on the competition. Everything depends on how the competition is run and what the mentality is behind the competition. Just to say, competitions are good or competitions are bad. It's a really wide spectrum. So, it's just like saying, drinks are good or drinks are bad. Well, it depends on what drink. There are many different kinds of drinks. So. Yeah, and I used to, when I was younger, also I used to think, competition for dance is an art. Competition shouldn't exist. But then, I judge a lot of competitions, and I've seen a lot of different ones. And I, being in the music, in music as well, I noticed that, in music, they do competitions all the time, especially in classical, competitions, but they don't approach it like a lot of dance competitions. It's less about, I have to win, as opposed to, there are some really big competitions, but as a general rule, it's more about the learning that I'm going to get out of it. And so I actually wrote an article about this too. But the competition, it depends on, what people need to go to a competition understanding that the value of competition is to learn, is to make yourself better. It's not whether you make first, second, or third place. And if you do make first, second, or third place, great, fabulous. But you also have to take that with a grain of salt, because on the back end, what if there are 5 people that are great, and they're all equally great? Someone has to win. You got to pick somebody, So if one person wins, that doesn't necessarily mean they're better than the second and third place. Mm-hmm. Just as if you only got third place or didn't place, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're better. There are a lot of other things that go into it. Like I said, what if there are 5, 10 people who are all equally great? Well, you still have to place 1, 2, 3. You got to make a choice. Mm-hmm. This is the part where I think judge feedback is important, because just say, you didn't win. Okay, but that doesn't help me. Mm-hmm. Why didn't I win? And when you have judges that are willing to take the time and say, well, it's because of this. This is what I see. Blah, 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 blah. And then that person can take that home and try to use it to go somewhere, And that's where the value of competition is. The other value, especially in international competition, is that when you have people from, and obviously this is, especially for live competitions, although I did, with our online competition, we did get some of that too, is that connection with people from other countries and from other places. And you learn that, my way of thinking is not the only way of thinking that exists in the world. And it's might not even be the best way of thinking. And you learn from other countries, and you make friendships that you otherwise would not have made friends, with. You build your contact base. You maybe even learn other languages. I mean, that, so there's a lot of positives to that, that kind of interchange, and that the competition is what brings it together,
Mm-hmm.
brings you all together. And
Right.
and I think that the negative side of competition is when winning is the only, I'll do anything to win. That's not really a healthy
No, it's not
mindset.
a healthy
Yeah. So
environment.
yeah. So competitions, it really depends on how it's run and what the values are.
Right. And to bring in something different, because a lot of them do weekly competition. So they just bounce around from like literally weekly competition, doing the same
Mhm.
thing over and over. So I hope they're getting value every weekend where it's like I'm going on stage and I'm getting, good feedbacks in order for myself to evolve. Because this is where I always question, do you know what you're doing after this 10 weeks of competition? Are you coming out knowing more? Are you more knowledgeable, more experienced? Do you know what you have to go do, go back in class and train for what? Like those are my questions that I always ask, when they're like spending so much money on the competition and then they don't have money to train. That's where I'm like, oof, there's information
Yeah,
there
there's
that's
definitely
missing.
there's definitely balance that, because even if you have the money to do a competition every weekend, I wouldn't necessarily advocate that, because if you spend all your time preparing for the competition,
You're not training.
you're not training properly. Even
Exactly.
if you have the money, it's just a matter of time.
Mhm.
And let's not forget, and this is one thing that I think the dance world, internationally, the world over forgets or doesn't understand, is that improvement in dance is based on, largely on how much rest you get.
Mhm.
Now, your body is, when you're in class, what you're doing is your body is absorbing information, but is when you're resting that it assimilates the information, makes changes to your body to correct, to prepare your body for the next class. That's when you're actually learning, is when you're resting. So when you have these mindsets where I gotta train 7 days a week nonstop, morning to night, that's not making you better.
Mhm.
If you look at professional athletes, they rest a lot more than dancers.
Mhm.
And in fact, the day before competition, they actually ease up on the training so that
Mhm.
their body can get the rest. You know,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
in dance, we do the opposite. We increase the amount of rehearsals for the show, and so by the time we get to the show, we're running off of pure adrenaline and nothing else.
Yes.
Our bodies are exhausted and ready to fall apart, and we just go on adrenaline, which is, once again, in my opinion, not the healthiest way to go about it.
I'm going to call you Dr. Rick. You're the doctor of dance, Dr. Rick. We have to learn all this. You know what? A convention here in Montreal, is this something that you are maybe looking to do? Because I think this would add so much value to everybody here.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about it for a long time, actually. It's just that there's so much money involved, to put that together. In fact, at some point I was talking, to move it in London, move it UK, which is, I think, the second biggest, or used
Yes.
to be second biggest, dance convention in Europe. Now there are others that are big too, but we were thinking of doing a move at North America.
I think it's the right time, especially now with everything that's happening. This experience we're having with the world is slowing us down. So it's giving us a chance to really see within what is really necessary. Also asking the right questions like, why am I doing this? Do I really love what I do? Because obviously I can tell you're passionate about what you've been doing and what you're doing and what you're sharing out there with all your years of experience and knowledge, but we need to hear more of it. It feels like, again, not everybody knows. So I'm going to have to plug you in a little bit more, Rick, so we can listen in and read all these articles, because the commercial dance and even the parents need to maybe get more educated. And I don't know, maybe they will spend that money for this convention. I think it's so worth it. It's going to be
Well,
useful.
that I would want it to be worth it, and that's why I say I don't want to do it unless I have enough money to do it, because I
Right.
want to bring in good teachers.
Yeah.
And I also hate not being able to pay people what they're worth.
I'm gonna try to think of ways, because I really would love to help you on that, because I think it's important. So now that we're coming close to the end, Rick, in one sentence, how do you see the future of dance?
I would say precarious, but maybe not for the reasons one might think. Way too many opinions out there that are perhaps uninformed. And so I think it's getting difficult to weed through all of the noise and say, what is the correct information?
Yeah.
What is wise and what is not? Because
Right.
it's all blending in.
Right.
And that's going to affect the dance world.
Mm-hmm.
And so the problem is that when the people who do know what they're doing decide, I'm fed up with it, I quit, that's when it becomes dangerous. Because then the future of the future dancers, they're going to be trained by the people who don't quit, you know. So that's why I say precarious. So we're at a crossroads here. We could destroy the profession, or we could make it better.
Wow. My body just went numb first. I just hope the right people will come together in order to make this change and to move forward in this good direction that is needed in the dance world, in the dance community. And
Yeah,
what do
I think they need to approach it in a different way, though. I think what happens when you get people that get together and dance and they try to a project or something, they tend to use what they know, which is normal, but I think that different times, different mindsets, different people
yeah.
Out there, we need to change the game. Like Einstein said, you can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that created it.
Yeah.
And so we need to almost throw away the old ways of thinking and say, okay, clean slate now. How are we going to approach this? You know, that speaks to today's mindset,
Mm-hmm.
today's people, today's technology.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We'll be thinking about this one. Thank you for sharing that light. And what do you think about the future of studios, dance studios?
The future of dance studios. Well, dance isn't going away. Dance like music is innate in human nature. It's just a matter of what form it's going to take. So I think the gathering of people to learn dance that's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. It's always going to be there. It's just a matter of what form, and what kind of external forces are going to put pressure on the way we run studios, the way they're set up. But the dance studios are still going to be there, because the ones that end up having to close today, and it's very unfortunate, there will always be new ones popping up. Mm-hmm. Because dance, like I said, dance, music, movement, just like drawing, painting, it's an intrinsic human need. And so people will do it regardless. They're going to find a way to do it. Definitely. It's just a matter of how.
The how. Have you been doing exactly what you love to do for all these years in the industry?
Yes and no. Yeah, yes and no. It just depends. I'm at a point where I'm shifting, evolving, and I just got to find a way to do that. A lot of people ask me, well, what's your dream? Well, my dream it's not like okay, I want to be an engineer. That's my dream. Mm-hmm. My dream is a little less precise than that. It's more that I want to have a positive and important impact on this discipline, on this industry. The way I do that is not important. So if it means, it's because your online dance competition becomes the most well-known and best in the world. Okay, fine. If it means that you're just going to be a traveling coach or do seminars, fine. If it means that, you're going to produce an online app that everyone uses, fine. It's not as precise as that. I just want to have that positive global impact.
Well said, Rick. Oh my God, thank you. That just inspired it. It literally resonated with me, with my whole soul right now, what you just said. It's you. It's totally you. It's what you've been doing for years. What is coming up for Rick?
I might be doing a couple of conventions and kind of showing people some of the new initiatives that Choreography Online is doing, Choreography Online and IPAV. When I'm done casting at RWS, I have another couple companies that have asked about my availability. Mm-hmm. But we do have our international online dance competition coming up in May, so there's a lot of work to be done with that.
And let's say we send out an invitation to all the dancers that want to join into this competition, how can they do that?
Well, go to the website, iodc dot online.
Mm-hmm.
So IODC is the International Online Dance Competition. So all the information is there. They can sign up for the mailing list there. They can there's a couple of videos there as well. People who have already participated in it. There's a link to add it to your calendar so you don't forget. And then May 11th is when it opens for entries.
Awesome.
And that's when the games begin.
When the games begin. So if we have to finish this interview, how would you finish off? What would you tell dancers for what's to come in the next year?
I think they should approach it in the same way that I tell my students to approach their training. It's like work. Don't just work hard. Work smart. Start thinking. Think things out. Work smart. It's not about quantity. It's about quality.
Work smart. It's about quality. Think smart. Wow. Thank you. That is beautiful.
The thing is, speaking of evolution, having to look at yourself, one of the things that I say to a lot of the kids I teach, regardless of the class, I teach a lot of different kinds of classes, is that the way to, the path to excellence is through feeling stupid. And that's really important, because if you're not willing to put yourself out there and fall flat in your face, if you're not willing to go out there and just look really stupid doing something that you're not good at, then you're not going to evolve. You go out, you feel stupid, you fall flat in your face, people laugh at you, but then you get up, you learn your lesson, and then you try it again. And that's how you evolve.
We end on that note. Thank you, Rick, for sharing all this information. This great, valuable information. I hope you dancers are listening in and are loving every minute of it. And please go look up Rick on any social media pages and Google him. You'll get on his website and get informed. Get to know what dance is and why it's there and what it does for you. Thank you, Rick, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.